Alright guys, we are back in the shop. It's May 21st and I've spent the last couple of weeks staying up extra late past my curfew working on a couple of different projects. I recently received 2 custom orders for 2 different Father's Day gifts, and they done messed around and gave me all the freedom to design. We're going to be cutting, we're going to be sanding, drilling, building, and of course, we're going to add a dab of glue. Before we continue, be sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. I've got 2 budgets for each of these projects. One is at $150, the other one's at $75. For the $150 budget, I was able to partner with one of my suppliers who sent me a shit ton of hardwoods to play with. The first custom order I received was from one of my friends, and he wants a beer caddy for his dad. I don't use SketchUp software, but when I get a custom order, I like to sketch out by hand what I'm looking to make. And I'll put that up on screen right here. I'll start with getting all my holes cut out, and I'm using a piece of walnut that measures 11.5 inches in length, 8 1/4 inches in width, and 7/8 of an inch thick. A typical beer bottle is about 2.5 inches to 2 3/4 in diameter. So I'm using a 3-inch hole saw bit to get my marks. For those of you who like plans, I will have some available shortly after I post this video. To get my layouts, I pulled in from the right at 2 1/8, 5 5/8, and 9 1/4. From the edge, I pulled in at 2 1/4 from the left and the right edge. And that gave me the layout for all of my holes. Alright, what I'm going to do is scribe around the circles that I made with the 1/2 inch outline on each one of these circles, and we'll be cutting the exterior of the circles. Let me demonstrate. I'll sneak up with my bandsaw to those outlines that I made. If you don't have a bandsaw, no worries, you could easily take care of this with a jigsaw. After I make all those cuts, I'll head over to the belt sander and sand right up to those lines, finishing up this piece. Anything that I can't hit with the belt sander, I'll just have to do it with a little bit of hand sanding, which is never fun. Then it was time to work on the base. I'm using a piece of walnut the same size as the first piece of walnut. I'm going to get it cleaned up at the joiner and the planer, and I'm going to trace out the piece that we've already got ready onto the base. I won't be cutting any circles out, but I will be cutting the exterior curves. I'll get the majority of the waste cut out with the jigsaw and the miter saw. I'll tape the 2 pieces together and then get them cut flush with each other at the bandsaw. I'll do any fine tuning with the belt sander, and then it's back to the hand sanding. And finally, I'll use my chisel to get in those sharp corners and clean them up so they're nice and flush. You can use a rasp or some files if you have those laying around the shop. They work just as good. Now, I need to get the piece that has the holes in it resawn, and I'm going to resaw that directly in half. My piece was 7/8 of an inch thick, so we'll wind up with 2 pieces roughly 7/16 thick each. Be careful when resawing this piece with those curves. The bandsaw will want to pull that piece, but as long as you hold it steady, you should be just fine.
Pretty little flower, I'll be for hours.
I decided to use this quilted maple for the upright of our piece. I went ahead and got it cut down to 8 inches in width, 12 inches in length, and I needed to resaw it in half. Ultimately, I'll clean it up after we resaw it all the way down to 1/4 inch in thickness. The very next thing we're going to do is remove that top piece that has the holes in it. And for our bottom piece, I need to route out a dado to fit our upright. So we'll hold that at center, marking the very ends of our upright onto our bottom piece. And those marks will be where our dado stops. Now, I'm going to take care of this over at the router table with the 1/4 inch straight bit. However, if you don't have a router table, just use a drill with a 1/4 inch drill bit, and then you can jigsaw the rest of that dado out all the way through our bottom piece. The router table can be pretty sketchy at times, so I was sure to take my time, lined up my piece with the center of the bit, and took a little bit at a time, raising that height a 1/16 from each pass. Once I made it all the way through, I just needed to clean up those round corners with my chisel and give it a test fit. Oh yeah. That is quite nice. The next step I took was to make the notches in my upright. I pulled up from the bottom at 3.5 inches, and from those 3.5 inch marks I pulled in at 1 inch, and we'll take that 1 inch notch all the way up to the top of the board, cutting that out with the bandsaw. So now we're left with a 6-inch width at the top of our piece. I'll transfer this 6-inch width over to my top piece with the holes in it and get that same 1/4 inch cut all the way through over here at the router table. After that, it was time to cut out the handle for this piece. I'll pull down 1.5 inches from the top and pull in at those 1.5 inch marks to 1.5 inches as well. Punch those holes and get those drilled out. We'll get that waste cut out, transferring the edge of our holes across our piece. And we'll use our jigsaw to get that waste removed. I then took the piece to my vise, and I'm going to add some little grooves for fingers to slide through, and it just makes it a little bit nicer to grab. You can find these cylinder sanders for your drill on Amazon. I don't think I've done more sanding than on this piece ever. I most likely spent 1.5 hours just sanding and touching up the piece, but it was 100% necessary. I wanted this piece to be amazing. As I was blowing off this handle, I realized that it was missing something. Yeah, we got to do something about that. I decided that we were going to put a slight round over at the very top edges. I think that's going to really bring this piece together. After I got those roundovers done, there was only one thing left to do. We gonna add a dab of glue, 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 add a dab of glue. Go down below the video and smack that subscribe button and hit that like button. It means the world to me that you would take the time to do something so simple that's absolutely free. Subscribe today. While that was drying, I went over to my laptop and downloaded a file for a Coors Light label. Coors Light, if you're watching this, I hope you don't sue me. His favorite beverage is Coors Light, the Silver Bullet. So I decided to laser engrave that label on both sides of the upright. After that, it was time to get this piece assembled. I took it out of the clamps, added the glue in the necessary spots, and man, was this ever satisfying. That is so damn cool. I might start drinking beer again. After a little bit of touch-up sand, it was time to apply our poly finish. Our next custom order came in from a young lady who has recently just had another child. She's been married for 5 years and they just moved into a bigger home to expand the family. They don't have a lot of money, so she gave me a budget of $75 to create a floating shelf made out of cedar. Her husband has a man cave and he's got these cedar shelves that are already installed, but she wanted to add one with a special feature. As you can see, I used that circular saw to cut these down to workable sizes at the miter saw, and I'll ultimately be getting that 1x4 and 1x8 cut to 26 inches in length, and then I wound up getting two 1x4s cut to 6 3/8. Now, the construction I'm going to use for this build isn't what I would typically do. However, I have to match what's already existing in his man cave. So we're going to add some pocket holes to our 6 3/8 inch pieces and our 1x4. And that's how we'll be fastening this thing together. If it were up to me, I would do some bevels and 45-degree miters. That way it'd be invisible and look like an actual box beam. However, the ones that are already there are constructed with nothing but square butts. Not that I'm against anything that's square butt built. However, I think the 45s would make it look so much better. But it's not up to me. So the $75 budget did not allow for me to add any kind of hardware to the piece. So what we're going to be doing is building this shell right here that will cap over an actual hidden shelf. And that will all come together here in just a little bit. Now it's just a matter of measuring out the inside of my shell, and that will give me the dimensions for the actual hidden compartment. I've got 6 3/8 from the inside to the back, and from inside to inside I've got 24.5. I wound up cutting 2 1x4s to 24.5 as well as a 1x8 to that 24.5 measurement. The 1x8 will be nailed to the 1x4s, so I need to get that ripped down so it'll fit inside of our shell, and I'll rip that to 4.5 inches. Now to fasten this to the wall, I'm going to pre-drill 4 holes in the backer, and I'll measure in at 4 inches, and from that 4-inch mark, I'll pull over to 16 inches, and that's 16 inches on center. That way they can hit 2 studs when they hang this piece. We'll add a dab of glue, and we're gonna pop a Brad in his ass. Now I just need to measure the height from my 1x8 to the top of my 1x4, and that's 2 3/8. So I'll rip the remaining piece of that 1x8 that we ripped to 2 3/8. And I'll get 2 of those cut to 4.5. We'll add a dab of glue and pop a Brad in his ass. And there we go. Here I'm just going to demonstrate how this will mount to the wall and how it will ultimately work without having any kind of runner or any kind of hardware to open. It's just a simple cap and remove. These match his existing shelves with the rough side of the cedar out and a coat of shellac. I'll probably apply 2 coats just to make it brighten up a little bit more. Well, rock stars, these are 2 great projects for Father's Day. I hope y'all enjoyed the build, and I hope y'all consider building both of these projects. They're absolutely awesome. I have enough cedar left over to build 1 more shelf, so I'm going to build one a little bit bigger. The size that I built is what's already in his house, so she wanted to keep them the same, but I'm going to build one a little bit bigger for them to surprise them. Until next time, happy Father's Day and happy Memorial Day weekend. Scott.